Hello and welcome to this very special UK film review interview. I am joined by filmmaker Tim Earnheart. Tim, how are you?
Good, good. Chris, how are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Where do we find you in the world right now?
I'm in the Seattle, Washington area in the United States.
Oh, fantastic. And how is things there in terms of cinemas and are they open again? Are people going to cinemas?
I think they're kind of slightly open here, but it's still a slow thing happening around here.
Yeah, I mean it's we've only just reopened actually very recently, so yeah, it's obviously slowly getting there. But
Yeah.
obviously you've been busy over the last few years with your short films, and in particular Nemesis. So obviously, I'm a big fan of Nemesis. It's all right, Tim. You can relax straight away. I am a fan. We've chatted about this before, so it's all good. But for those who don't know, what is the story of Nemesis?
Well, it's about these two young women, and they went to college together, and they both started tech companies, and they just merged together, and they're out celebrating. But one of them messed over the other one to become CEO of the newly formed company. And even though she didn't mean for she didn't mean really ill will in her mind, she really did mess over her best friend. And so subsequently, it's her best friend's birthday, and she asks her best friend what she's doing, and her best friend says she's going to a hunting club, and if she's interested, then she gives her this little kind of credit card that's actual an invite to join the hunting club. And then the wheels fall off from there for our protagonist antagonist of the movie.
I mean, you've given like a good section of the beginning of the film, but obviously the big draw is what comes next, right? Which we won't spoil,
Yeah.
but if anyone wants to watch the trailer, you'll get an idea of what is to come. And where did this story come from then? Why did you want to tell this story?
Well, it was interesting. I had just finished my previous short film, Ricochet, a few months earlier. I wasn't planning to do another short film because each short film takes me about 6 months from writing the script to finishing post-production. Even though we might shoot for only 5 days, I spent about 3 months in post-production and a few months like getting props and costumes and all that in pre-production. So I wasn't planning on doing something, but my girlfriend and I, we were kind of outside, August of 2019, and we were just chit-chatting about stuff. And the idea came up, like, not the idea, but the conversation kind of turned to, what do extremely wealthy people do with their money, right? If you had all the money in the world, like, what kind of corrupt, what kind of weird stuff that us normal people don't have access to, what could the uber wealthy have access to that we don't know anything about? And what if there was this place, which I kind of looked at Ricochet that I did before with this place called the Institute. Like, what if this place was for the uber wealthy to come to kind of let their fantasies become reality because they have all the money in the world to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned Ricochet because stylistically, they're very similar. There's a lot of action and it's fast paced. It's absolutely breakneck, to be honest. Like, viewers will struggle to keep up with it. And, were you conscious of that style and that tone? Is that something that you sort of thought, look, I actually kind of want to recreate this world. I want to do more in this world, or were you trying to make it different?
It was conscious because we were playing around with like a lot of LED lighting in Ricochet. And the one thing we've struggled with the last few films before that is shooting in the dark. When you're shooting in the dark, it's really hard to light, especially when you're shooting at a breakneck pace like we do. And so these LED lights just kind of, they set a mood, they set a tone, but they add light to your actors as well. And it gives it a little bit more kind of fun. It gives it that kind of, I don't want to say John Wick feel, but you know, it's stylized like those kinds of movies.
It is a bit John Wick, actually. Yeah, it is a bit John Wick, but in a really, really good way. Like, fantastic.
Yeah, and so I was like, what if I can bring even more of that into Nemesis? You know, I feel like it can add an interesting color palette when we're shooting.
And it really does. It's very vivid and visceral. And I think that is, as you're saying about the whole idea of rich people, what they would do, it needs to look the part as well. It couldn't look like Fight Club. Do you know what I mean? You couldn't have it like being like, oh, it's all grungy and things. It needed that. And you get the champagne moments and the things like that. Like, it's actually got this sort of, and I've seen a few reviews mention Hunger Games. And it's interesting that because of the whole rich people getting poor people to sort of fight, and you know, and it does come across that way in some senses, and the props that you go into are so extravagant, you know, the guns, the LED lights, as you mentioned, and things like that. I mean, what was the budget here?
It was $40,000 for this, and people are like, wow, where do you put all the money? Is it to the actors and stuff? And it's like, all the actors and all the crew work for free. We had a 5-person crew on this, and the actors, when they weren't acting, they would help behind the scenes, like move a light here and there, move a dolly here and there. But all the money went to the costume of the kind of cyborg creature that's in the movie. That was $8,000, and it was a lot because he had some LED armor that was all fabricated in Toronto. The mask was fabricated in Los Angeles. Some other stuff was made in London. And and pretty much the huge portion of the budget goes to locations. We weren't we shot at this place called the Fremont Foundry for the battle scenes. We weren't supposed to shoot there. I wanted to shoot the entire movie in a soundstage, and no place where I live would rent me a soundstage because they want to rent to the Microsofts, the Amazons, you know. Even though I had the money to spend, they still didn't want to rent it to an independent person like me. And then I stumbled upon the foundry, this Fremont Foundry, and it was perfect. And I couldn't have gotten a set like that. I couldn't have built a set like that in a soundstage. It would have cost too much, right? So
it works really well, doesn't it? The actual as a location, because of it's all enclosed, but you've got the layers because of the the upper staircases and things. How was that to shoot though? Because obviously there must have been a lot of setups for this, right? I think you mentioned before how many setups there were.
In the foundry, I think there was 180 setups that we did in 3 days there. Wow. Yeah, it was crazy. I wanted 4 days, but we were shooting at the last week in December, New Year's Eve, and they couldn't give me a 4th day because they had to set up for a New Year's Eve party there. And so it wasn't too bad. I had more shots planned up on the balconies, but because of time, after the first day, we ran behind schedule. And so the second day, we're trying to make up that schedule. So a lot of the shots I was going to have up on that balcony, I just nixed because it was too much work for us to bring all the camera and the equipment up there. And I was just ripping pages out of my shot list just to try to get back on schedule that second day.
So would you say that was what the biggest challenge was the time frame, or is there other challenges as well?
I mean, the biggest challenge was finding that location. Again, I mean, it was a movie director I'm friends with said sometimes not getting what you want is the best possible outcome, and that was true. And it was cool when we got that location. I was rewriting the script for that location since I was planning to shoot it on a soundstage. Like, all the blocking was different. What the actors were doing were different. It was such a blessing in disguise. We had so much room in there. We had green rooms. We had a huge space in back. We set up a green screen. We kept all the film equipment, and we can just roll stuff in and out on wheels as much as we wanted. So, but yeah, shooting the battle scene, I wish I had an extra day for that, but it is what it is.
Well, you know, it's been very well received, well, by us. But then, how's it been received elsewhere? You know, audiences, festivals. What's the reaction been like?
Yeah, it's crazy, unbelievable. Not what I was expecting. I mean, you know, I when I finish a movie, I'm like, yeah, I think I have a good movie here. But you never know how people are going to perceive it. But I think it's won about 65 awards so far. Um, the end of September, it's in the Shriekfest Film Festival here in the US. It's one of the largest horror film festivals, which I'm excited about. One of my other short films called Safe won Best Sci-Fi there in 2018. So it's kind of cool to be going back to Shriekfest. It's a lot of fun there. But just really happy. People enjoy it, you know. You just put out a movie and you're crossing your fingers, like, are people going to get like, this is a thriller with action, with horror elements, but maybe a little bit of sci-fi elements? Are they going to get it, or is it going to be too confusing? You know, and everybody gets it, you know.
And so, a film like yours as well, it's perfect cinema. You know, it needs to be seen on a big screen, and so you must have had that opportunity before COVID and things. You know, were you able to get it up on the big screen?
No, not yet. Shriekfest will be the first time we see it on the big screen.
Oh, really? Oh, that's,
yeah.
Because, you know, I've seen it. I've probably seen it the most, actually, Tim. I've probably seen, after you, I've probably seen it, you know, the most amount of time. And every time I watch it, I think this needs to be on a bigger screen, even bigger than what I've got. Whatever I've got, it needs to be bigger, because the action, you know, the input that you've gone to make this film feel as much as you know, the 40K that you've spent is well spent on the look of this film. So seeing it on a big screen is really, really important, I think. So hopefully, yeah, people get out to the festival for it and see that. But then, can they see it elsewhere? Have you got plans for distribution, for release?
Not yet. I'm waiting until after Shriekfest to decide what to do with it. Part of me wants to kind of wrap Nemesis up with Ricochet and some elements from Safe and try to come up with a concept for like a TV show, you know, that revolves around some of these elements. It would be really interesting to put these things together and tie them all together a little bit more. Because I've just been winging it from short film to short film.
I genuinely, I think we spoke about this at the festival. I think a TV series would work phenomenally for this. I mean, I'm a big film fan, but also love TV, and I think that the nature of this, you know, having these kind of stuck stories but joined together by a thread that, you know, ties them all together, would work really, really well. But obviously, you've always done short films, right? Have you done any features yet?
No, I have not. You know, every short film, I just want to make better and better. And it's not only pushing myself as a storyteller and a filmmaker, but it gives you more confidence when you get to that feature film. If you have that opportunity, that you know you can pull it off, you know. So all of this is practice for the big show. I look at.
But then, would you not? So you're obviously talking about maybe a TV series, but then is that really where you want to go, or are you more going towards the feature filmmaking?
I would like features. I have written a few feature scripts that have gotten well received. So we'll kind of, I'm having conversations with people, and we'll just see how that goes, if it turns into anything. You know, crossing your fingers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, fingers crossed for you. I've already said this film needs to be more anyway. Like, it would have been great to see it longer or as a TV series. So, but then other than Nemesis, then you've mentioned there a few sort of scripts and things like that. Is there anything you can tell us about those, what they're about, or is it under lock and key at this point?
Kind of that way, but they're you know, one that I've been holding on to for many years. It's a thriller, but again, it has elements of action and horror and sci-fi in it. But it could be made on a reasonable budget. When I say reasonable budget, like under $10 million kind of thing. You know, it's more money than I have, but you know, it's a big concept. But then other things that I've written too are bigger. You know, one's kind of a heist movie that's kind of a mix between Ocean's 11 and the Fast and Furious. Another one is a straight sci-fi action one. So I tell people I get bored very easily, so that's why I don't stay in one genre.
Get all in there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. I always talk to filmmakers and try and steal their ideas. So if you see any of those turn out, it's that I've ripped you off. Yeah. So that's obviously in the pipeline for you next. Then pushing those and finishing up the Nemesis circuit. In terms of just more general then about your filmmaking, have you got any sort of filmmakers that are working now that you're particularly looking to? Anyone that's sort of really inspiring?
Oh God, it's always, for me, I mean, David Fincher is always one. There's, I love James Wan as well, because he's very prolific. When you think of, like, he started with Saw, he did also Death Sentence, which is more of an action thriller than a horror. And, Conjuring, a Fast and Furious movie, Aquaman. I mean, that's the kind of career I would really like, where you can dabble in different genres and not just stay in one, because it's very easy to get pigeonholed into one.
And I think you've done that already. Looking at your previous films, I've seen a couple actually. I've seen Ricochet, and I think I saw Safe. And I think can people see those? Are those available anywhere?
Yeah, they're you can look at them. They're public on Vimeo and on YouTube as well. My YouTube channel, Vimeo channel.
Oh, fantastic. We'll drop the links to those, because it's definitely worth, actually, I think, seeing those other shorts even before seeing Nemesis, because it's kind of quite a nice gradual introduction to see where you're at with your latest film. And it is a nice, as you said, that you're maybe bringing them in together as a kind of compilation would work really well, I think, for viewers. So, oh, fantastic.
Yeah. I kind of also knew each film had to be independent of each other, because I couldn't rely that viewers would see the previous film. So they had to work on their own as well. So,
and actually, that's one of the things you get really well done in the intro to Nemesis, is the setup, because quite often when you've got the sort of sci-fi films coming along with a very grand world that you've got to explain very, very quickly, it worked in Nemesis because they're out, they're drinking, and they have this conversation that's like an invite, and it's obviously, it's an invitation, so you've got to explain what it is in a sense. Obviously, as well, there's a lot of mystery behind what's going on here. You don't want to give away the game, and I think you do it really well, like not to lay all the cards down and say, this is why everything's happening. And was that intentional as well, that you wanted to try and build some suspense around this, because there's more to come later?
Yeah, I mean, every scene I tried to have a little bit more suspense than the previous scene, but I'll tell you, that opening scene in Nemesis, I tried for months cutting that scene in half. Okay, because I knew it was a little long, but I needed Isha's main character, the main character who we follow here, Astrid. I needed people not to like her, but kind of like her at the end. I needed them rooting for her when the battle comes up. And every time I rewrote it, I would say, okay, I'll cut out the last half, or I'll cut out the first half. And then it just felt forced. And so I'm obviously not completely happy with the opening. I mean, some of the dialogue, you mentioned too, is a little on the nose. And it is, just because I'm trying to just get right into the story. So there's no more explanation of stuff, And it was just a hard time rewriting that just to make it work,
And was it conscious that you had two female characters?
Yes.
So you wanted it to be sort of a female character against another female character kind of coming in, and what was the reason for that?
Well, I figure, you can show both of these women in, like, they're both strong women. You can tell that from the scene. Like Astrid, she'll stab you in the front, whereas Evelyn's character, she's more like the Art of War character. She's not gonna, with her slipping Astrid the card to the Institute, setting all this thing up. I'm giving a lot away, but it's, I just wanted some very strong female leads in this, and it just so happened that they auditioned together and they read for both parts, and we weren't sure who was going to play which part, because they were both so good and they're friends in real life, and we just didn't know any of that. So from the beginning. So, but yeah, I just wanted really strong female leads that can just kick some butt, right? So,
and they do. They're so dynamic on screen, and it's a difficult performance to carry off, because obviously the character's faced with sort of a lot of shall we say villains, but they're not given personality in terms if they've got face coverings on, you know, they're wearing masks or whatever. And I think that was an interesting thing to see play out, like an action film like this with a lot of gratuitous violence, with a strong female character being really the only one that you're watching. Yeah, and I think it was interesting, really powerful choice there to have made. So yeah, well done. I liked it, Tim. Well, you know I'm a fan anyway.
Yeah.
And before we go, Tim, have you got a favorite film?
Oh, geez. I have so many favorite films.
I love doing this to filmmakers because they're just not ready for it. Anything,
you know,
anything good you've
watched? I
watched?
like the girl with the dragon tattoo, and the sequel, The Girl in the Spider's Web. They're nice. They're fun movies for me. You know, the whodunit kind of movies, but again, they're thrillers with elements of action and maybe a little bit of horror mixed into it. So I think those are the movies I really gravitate towards.
Was that the first one? Was that Fincher as well? I feel like that was
yes.
Fincher. Yeah.
Yes. The second one, oh God, I forget the director's name off the top of my head, but he directed Don't Breathe as well, which I loved as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Tim. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you again. And obviously, yeah, we'll drop links to where people can see a couple of your films. And yeah, hopefully everyone checks out Nemesis at the festival. But keep us updated if you do obviously release it, especially in the UK. We'd love to let everyone know where they can see it.
Cool. Thanks,
Chris. Tim. All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.